Hi, family. This is day 44 of our Reading Through the Bible Together in a Year series. Today we're covering Numbers chapters 19 through 21. Now, yesterday we had a couple more of Israel testing God in the wilderness, right, of the 7 tests. And it's Korah's rebellion and the fight over why does Aaron have the priesthood? Why are Moses and Aaron? Why do the Levites have the control here? And so that was what Korah's rebellion was all about. And chapter 17, which was the budding of Aaron's staff. And so now today we're continuing on in the wilderness some more with a couple more tests before things start to get really different. So let's see how that goes today. And Yahweh said to Moshe and Aaron, "This is the rule of the law which Yahweh has made, saying, Give orders to the children of Israel to give you a red cow without any mark on her, and on which the yoke has never been put. Give her to Eleazar the priest, and let him take her outside the tent circle, and have her put to death before him. Then let Eleazar the priest take some of her blood on his finger, shaking the blood 7 times in the direction of the front of the tent of meeting. And the cow is to be burned before him. Her skin and her flesh and her blood and her waist are to be burned. Then let the priest take cedar wood and hyssop and red thread, and put them into the fire where the cow is burning. And the priest, after washing his clothing and bathing his body in water, may come back to the tent circle, and will be unclean until evening. And he who does the burning is to have his clothing washed and his body bathed in water, and be unclean until evening. Then let a man who is clean take the dust of the burned cow and put it outside the tent circle in a clean place, where it is to be kept for the children of Israel and used in making the water which takes away what is unclean. It is a sin offering. And he who takes up the dust of the burned cow is to have his clothing washed with water, and be unclean until evening. This is to be a law forever, for the children of Israel as well as for the man from another country who is living among them. Anyone touching a dead body will be unclean for 7 days. On the 3rd day and on the 7th day he is to make himself clean with water, and so he will be clean. But if he does not do this on the 3rd day and on the 7th day, he will not be clean. Anyone touching the body of a dead man without making himself clean in this way makes the house of Yahweh unclean, and that man will be cut off from Israel, because the water was not put on him. He will be unclean. His unclean condition is unchanged. This is the law when death comes to a man in his tent. Everyone who comes into the tent and everyone who is in the tent will be unclean for 7 days. And every open vessel without a cover fixed on it will be unclean. And anyone touching one who has been put to death with the sword in the open country, or the body of one who has come to his end by a natural death, or a man's bone, or the resting place of a dead body, will be unclean for 7 days. And for the unclean they are to take the dust of the burning of the sin offering, and put flowing water on it in a vessel. And a clean person is to take hyssop and put it in the water, shaking it over the tent and all the vessels, and the people who were there, and over him by whom the bone, or the body of one who has been put to death with the sword, or the body of one who has come to his end by a natural death, or the resting place, was touched. Let the clean person do this to the unclean on the 3rd day and on the 7th day, and on the 7th day he is to make him clean, and after washing his clothing and bathing himself in water, he will be clean in the evening. But the man who, being unclean, does not make himself clean in this way, will be cut off from the meeting of the people, because he has made the holy place of Yahweh unclean. The water has not been put on him, he is unclean. This is to be a law for them forever. He who puts the water on the unclean person is to have his clothing washed, and anyone touching the water will be unclean until evening. Anything touched by the unclean person will be unclean, and any person touching it will be unclean until evening. In the 1st month all the children of Israel came into the wasteland of Sin, and put up their tents in Kadesh. There death came to Miriam, and they put her body to rest in the earth. And there was no water for the people, and they came together against Moshe and against Aaron. And the people were angry with Moshe and said, "If only death had overtaken us when our brothers came to their death before Yahweh. Why have you taken Yahweh's people into this waste, for death to come to us and to our cattle there? Why have you made us come out of Egypt into this evil place? This is no place of seed or figs or vines or other fruits, and there is no water for drinking." Then Moshe and Aaron went away from the people to the door of the tent of meeting, and, falling on their faces there, they saw the glory of Yahweh. And Yahweh said to Moshe, "Take the rod, you and Aaron your brother, and make all the people come together, and before their eyes give orders to the rock to give out its water, and so make water come out of the rock for them, and give the people and their cattle drink. And Moshe took the rod from before Yahweh as he gave him orders. Then Moshe and Aaron made the people come together in front of the rock, and he said to them, "Give ear now, you people whose hearts are turned from Yahweh. Are we to get water for you out of the rock?" And lifting up his hand, Moshe gave the rock 2 blows with his rod, and water came streaming out, and the people and their cattle had drink enough. Then Yahweh said to Moshe and Aaron, "Because you had not enough faith in me to keep my name holy before the children of Israel, you will not take this people into the land which I have given them. These are the waters of Meribah, because the children of Israel went against Yahweh, and they saw that he was holy among them." Then Moshe sent men from Kadesh to the king of Edom to say to him, "Your brother Israel says, 'You have knowledge of all the things we have been through, how our fathers went down into Egypt, and we were living in Egypt for a long time, and the Egyptians were cruel to us and to our fathers. And Yahweh gave ear to the voice of our cry, and sent an angel and took us out of Egypt, and now we are in Kadesh, a town on the edge of your land. Let us now go through your land. We will not go into field or vine garden, or take the water of the springs. We will go by the highway, not turning to the right or to the left, until we have gone past the limits of your land.' And Edom said, 'You are not to go through my land, for if you do, I will come out against you with the sword.' And the children of Israel said to him, 'We will go up by the highway, and if we or our cattle take of your water, we will give you a price for it. Only let us go through on our feet, nothing more.' But he said, 'You are not to go through.' And Edom came out against them in his strength with a great army. So Edom would not let Israel go through his land, and Israel went in another direction. And they went on from Kadesh, and came with all their people to Mount Hor. And at Mount Hor, at the edge of the land of Edom, Yahweh said to Moshe and Aaron, 'Aaron will be put to rest with his people. He will not go into the land which I have given to the children of Israel, because you went against my word at the waters of Meribah. So take Aaron and Eleazar, his son, up to Mount Hor, and take Aaron's robes off him and put them on Eleazar, his son, and death will come to Aaron there, and he will be put to rest with his people.' So Moshe did as Yahweh had said, and before the eyes of all the people they went up Mount Hor. And Moshe took off Aaron's robes and put them on Eleazar his son, and there on the top of the mountain death came to Aaron. Then Moshe and Eleazar came down from the mountain, and when the people saw that Aaron was dead, all the children of Israel gave themselves up to weeping for him for 30 days. And it came to the ears of the Canaanite, the king of Arad, living in the south, that Israel was coming by the way of Atharim. And he came out against them and took some of them prisoners. Then Israel made an oath to Yahweh and said, 'If you will give up this people into my hands, then I will send complete destruction on all their towns.' And Yahweh, in answer to the voice of Israel, gave the Canaanites up to them, and they put them and their towns completely to destruction. And that place was named Hormah. Then they went on from Mount Hor by way to the Red Sea, going round the land of Edom. And the spirit of the people was overcome with weariness on the way. And crying out against God and against Moshe, they said, 'Why have you taken us out of Egypt to come to our death in the wasteland? For there is no bread and no water, and this poor bread is disgusting to us.' Then Yahweh sent poisonous snakes among the people, and their bites were a cause of death to the numbers of the people of Israel. Then the people came to Moshe and said, 'We have done wrong in crying out against Yahweh and against you. Make prayer to Yahweh to take away the snakes from us.' So Moshe made prayer for the people. And Yahweh said to Moshe, 'Make an image of a snake and put it on a rod, and anyone who has been wounded by the snakes, looking on it, will be made well.' So Moshe made a snake of brass and put it on a rod, and anyone who had a snake bite, after looking on the snake of brass, was made well. Then the children of Israel went on and put up their tents in Oboth. And journeying on again from Oboth, they put up their tents in Iye Avarim, in the wasteland before Moab, looking east. And moving on from there, they put up their tents in the valley of Zered. From there they went on and put up their tents on the other side of the Arnon, which is on the wasteland at the edge of the land of the Amorites. For the Arnon is the line of division between Moab and the Amorites. As it says in the book of the wars of Yahweh, Vahev in Suphah, and the valley of the Ammon, the slope of the valleys going down to the tents of Ar and touching the edge of Moab. From there they went on to Beer, the water spring, of which Yahweh said to Moshe, 'Make the people come together, and I will give them water.' Then Yisrael gave voice to this song, 'Come up, O water spring, let us make a song to it. the fountain made by the chiefs, made deep by the great ones of the people, with the lawgiver's rod and with their sticks. Then from the wasteland they went on to Mattanah, and from Mattanah to Nahaliel, and from Nahaliel to Bamoth, and from Bamoth to the valley in the open country of Moab, and to the top of Pisgah, looking over Yeshimon. And Yisrael sent men to Sihon, king of the Amorites, saying, Let me go through your land. We will not go into field or vine garden, or take the water of the springs. We will go by the highway until we have gone past the limits of your land. And Sihon would not let Yisrael go through his land, but got all his people together and went out against Yisrael into the wasteland, as far as Yahatz, to make war on Yisrael. But Yisrael overcame him, and took all his land from the Arnon to the Yabok, as far as the country of the children of Ammon. For the country of the children of Ammon was strongly armed. And Yisrael took all their towns living in Heshbon, and all the towns and small places of the Amorites. For Heshbon was the town of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who had made war against an earlier king of Moab, and taken from him all his land as far as the Arnon. So the makers of wise sayings say, Come to Heshbon, building up the town of Sihon and making it strong. For a fire has gone out of Heshbon, a flame from the town of Sihon, for the destruction of Ad and Moab, and the lords of the high places of the Arnon. Sorrow is yours, O Moab. Destruction is your fate, O people of Chemosh. His sons have gone in flight, and his daughters are prisoners, in the hands of Sihon, king of the Amorites. They are wounded with our arrows. Destruction has come on Heshbon, even to Divon, and we have made the land waste as far as Nophach, stretching out to Medva. So Yisrael put up their tents in the land of the Amorites, and Moshe sent men secretly to Yatzer, and they took its towns, driving out the Amorites who were living there. Then, turning, they went up by the way of Bashan, and Og, king of Bashan, went out against them with all his people to fight at Edrei. And Yahweh said to Moshe, Have no fear of him, for I have given him up into your hands with all his people in his land. Do to him as you did to Sihon, king of the Amorites, at Heshbon. So they overcame him and his sons and his people, driving them all out, and they took his land for their heritage. So for one, this is the second time that we see Moses and a rock and water, except this time it's different. The first time God tells Moses to strike the rock, but the second time here in Numbers, God tells Moses to speak with the rock. Now, what it seems to me is what's happening here is that Moses is angry. He's angry about something, and this seems to be sort of a violent response to Moses' own attitude. And so I'm wondering, because God's response to Moses is, because you didn't believe me and you didn't treat me as holy, then you won't take this assembly into the land flowing with milk and honey, or however it's phrased there. But it's interesting that specifically, it's not that because you didn't obey my word, which is usually what we would use as an argument here. You know, Moses couldn't enter the promised land because he didn't obey God's word, and he hit the rock instead of speaking to the rock. I just don't think it's that simple. Because you didn't believe me and you didn't treat me as holy. So what is it that Moses being violent towards this rock in order to get water rather than speaking to it that God said, what does that say? Especially thinking about the idea that he puts Israel before the rock. It's complicated, and I don't think there's any one perfect answer, but I think it is much deeper than just, well, I said say it, I said speak to the rock, and you hit the rock, so now you can't enjoy the promised land. I just think it's deeper than that. Like, where's Moses' attitude after he's dealt with Israel in the wilderness all of these different times? So consider that. But then this other story, this bronze serpent that's just totally crazy, and like, what? That's when I come to the story, it's so confusing. However, what I do think is happening is I think that the thing that is killing Israel, like the snakes, the poisonous snakes, the fiery snakes or whatever, the thing that is killing them is the thing that God has Moses construct an image of and put up on a pole so that when they look up to it, they can be healed. Now, that's complicated by itself. Just this idea that maybe it is that God wants them to recognize the thing that's killing them, or maybe it's throwing some Garden of Eden imagery in there and thinking like you've been pulled away to your own desires, just like the snake. And so you have to recognize what is wrong about your attitude and what is killing you in order to be healed. Or, there's other examples in antiquity and Canaanite culture where they did worship snakes. And so maybe it's an example of God giving them over to their own desires, or giving them over to their own understanding of what it means to follow a deity or whatever. It's complicated if you take it by itself. However, if you do take what Jesus has to say in John about it, right? Because Jesus says, just as Moses lifted up the bronze serpent in the wilderness, even so the Son of Man must be lifted up. The crucifixion, that practice of torture and execution, was reserved for the lowest of low and traitors to the Roman Empire. And so this rebellious group, right? Crucifixion was mostly used for rebellious people and traitors. And that's interesting that Jesus compares the bronze serpent, right? If the Israelites were looking to the thing that was killing them to be healed, and then Jesus compares himself as being lifted up, and those who look to him, have faith in him, will be healed. Maybe there's a connection there. Maybe it's Jesus is showing he's dying as a traitor. He's dying as a rebellious person, even though he doesn't deserve it. And so maybe we look to Jesus's death on the cross, and it convicts us of the sin that we have that would create a world in where the innocent man is being killed as a traitor. That might be a complicated way of saying that, but I think that is a crucial aspect of understanding this bronze serpent, especially within the context of Jesus and what Jesus' crucifixion meant in a lesson for us. I mean, if we are humanity and we don't see that we have created a world in which the innocent man is crucified, if we don't see that how we are a part of that, then we're missing it. And we cannot be healed, and we cannot be a part of the solution. We cannot grow in our relationship to God unless we understand that we are also part of the problem, that we create this world where the innocent man is crucified. So those are my thoughts on the issue, and it's not, easy said and done, but it definitely is a lot to think about. And you have all of this wonderful day to do so. So go on and have a wonderful day.